My name is Erin Gay, and in this day and age, it's hard to find the real news that really speaks to us. And Progress Texas, they give you what you want, and it's amazing to hear people like-minded in Texas, especially, that really know what we want to hear and they deliver.
It's Thursday, May 7th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our no-paywall podcasts and digital media. We make Texas politics easy to understand and to participate in, and your support for fact-based independent media hands the mic to millions of Texans. Our thanks to Lila McCall, Jessica Ely, and Danette Mann for their ongoing sustaining support. We really appreciate it. Once again, today's a big day for academic freedom in Texas, centered in Lubbock, as a group of Texas Tech students and alumni make a stand for their school in the face of an ideological assault by MAGA extremists. And a new angle on the story appears just as the funeral procession prepares to launch this morning. As we've discussed extensively, the conservative undermining of the academic integrity of all of Texas's major state universities, UT Austin and Texas A&M certainly included, threatens to undermine their value to prospective students. But it appears the Texas Tech officials have tried to hide their tinkering with class content in an attempt to keep those students and, more importantly, their tuition money flowing into Lubbock. Jessica Priest at the Houston Chronicle reports on tech leaders directing faculty to restrict the circulation of a memo they sent out banning graduate research centering on sexual orientation or gender identity, instructing those staff members to use so-called targeted messaging. In other words, to beat around the bush about what awaits these incoming students at Tech. Such dishonesty borders on fraud in my book, and clearly warrants significant concern. Selective disclosure of this kind obviously could result in prospective scholars wasting tons of valuable time and thousands of dollars should they buy into study programs ultimately designed to stifle their academic discovery. This goes beyond simple state interference in higher education by discouraging their faculty from openly sharing the MAGA restrictions that lurk in Lubbock. Texas Tech is dabbling in the admission of students under false pretenses, and that is straight up fraud. Graduate work is a rigorous, years-long process, and many students don't fully realize their research trajectory until well into their studies. Withholding clarity about ideological roadblocks up front runs the risk of forcing students into the difficult position to later stay in a restricted program and abandon their authentic research goals, or to transfer to another university and risk losing both money and academic progress. Our message to Chancellor Brandon Creighton and Texas Tech: if you're going to offer up a defective product, at least have the guts to admit it. All of this adds even more outrage to the funeral for academic freedom at Texas Tech this morning at the University System office building on Knoxville on the southwest corner of the Tech campus. Memorial wake at 8 a.m., Board of Regents meeting complete with testimony at 9, funeral services and eulogies at 11, and a procession across campus starting at 11:30. See the link in the show notes for more. As I mentioned yesterday, on my recent pass through town, I found Lubbock thick with police presence, and it's hard not to think it may have to do with recent upticks in local law enforcement cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. And in fact, Emma Ruby at the Dallas Observer says Texas is on the verge of a seismic shift in policing as Senate Bill 4 is set to go into effect 1 week from tomorrow on Friday, May 15th, which would mark a radical departure from established legal norms by empowering local law enforcement to arrest individuals suspected of having entered the country illegally, a responsibility that's been a strictly federal enforcement matter for decades. SB 4 makes unauthorized border crossing a state crime and thus essentially transforms every local deputy and municipal officer into an immigration agent, which also essentially functions as a green light for systemic racial profiling across Texas and open season on brown folks wherever they may interact with any form of law enforcement. The ACLU of Texas has sued to block SB 4, arguing it threatens even those with legal status and could result in unconstitutional deportations. Ruby says police departments in North Texas cities like Garland, Irving, and Arlington are now trying to figure out how to implement SB 4 without destroying the trust they've spent years building with their Hispanic communities. That's going to be a tall order. With MAGA running amok on both our institutions of higher learning and our institutions of public safety, it might not be surprising to learn that folks thinking about traveling to Texas might be thinking twice lately. Paul Kobler at the Texas Tribune says that while the upcoming FIFA World Cup has been expected to perform as a guaranteed economic windfall for Texas to the tune of $3.5 billion. The boon is starting to look more like a bust, not only due to political mismanagement at home, but also new and unnecessary international friction due to the war in Iran and a fat dose of corporate greed as well. Despite 16 matches scheduled for this summer, hotel bookings in North Texas and Houston are underperforming. FIFA themselves have been canceling large hotel blocks. The ticket prices are sky high, and combined with a surge in anti-American sentiment abroad and cumbersome visa hurdles, the international fans who drive the supposed economic guarantees of the World Cup are both priced out and bummed out by the vibe. Watch for Dallas and Houston locals to end up filling those seats instead of high-spending international tourists, which will render the expected economic impact of the World Cup more of a shell game of moving local money around rather than bringing new wealth into Texas cities. The decline in international interest reflects a growing global distaste for all things USA. Instead of a vibrant global exchange, we're seeing the consequences of America First rhetoric and corporate price gouging. As always, elections have consequences. So should the World Cup turn out a stinker for Texas, it's a largely self-inflicted stinker. And finally today, y'all, if you're like me, there's another lingering stinker of a much more personal nature living here in the Trump era. Family and friends who, for all intents and purposes, aren't anymore due to political alienation. There's a new study on this from the University of California at Irvine that highlights a painful reality for many, not only in Texas, but across the country. Our political divides are no longer just about who we vote for, but about who we allow to remain in our lives. Researchers found that over a third of Americans have experienced so-called political breakups, the severing of ties with friends, family, and coworkers over political ideology. This kind of tension's been present since the founding, but has accelerated dramatically since the watershed year of Trump's first election in 2016. And for a state like Texas, where families often contain members of a wide ideological spectrum, the dinner table has become a front line in the struggle for the soul of our nation. Study data shows that Democrats are more likely to initiate these breakups, often as a necessary boundary against the increasingly extreme views of their MAGA friends and family. While some might call this intolerance, for many progressives, it's a matter of self-preservation and moral clarity. Turns out it's difficult to maintain a close bond with someone whose politics directly threaten your rights or identity. The study also finds that all of this contributes to the loneliness epidemic we've all heard of and perhaps experienced ourselves as our social circles become echo chambers. And this is important when we lose the ability to engage with real people on the other side or fully abandon the effort to do so. We're left with only caricatures of those people in their absence, which further fuels a cycle of hostility. It's not always easy to do, and we'd never suggest compromising your progressive values, but it is important to try and bridge those personal gaps, especially at a moment when many of those friends and family we've written off may be quietly having second thoughts, and perhaps at this pivotal moment could use a kind progressive voice to help light the way out of the darkness. The state primary runoff elections are scheduled for May 26th, with early voting beginning on May 18th in 11 days. See our carefully crafted GoVoteTexas.org for everything you need to know about voting in Texas, and there's a nice online tool from the Texas Tribune that shows you exactly who will be on your runoff ballot based on your address and party. Both of those are linked in our show notes. We have not one but two live events on the calendar right now in both Dallas and the Houston area. First Progress Texas will be hosting a live podcast in Cypress, Texas in less than 2 weeks. Come join us in Northwest Harris County as we do a first 6 months check-in with the Cy-Fair ISD school board members who made national news last year when they beat back the Christian nationalists. Be sure to sign up on the Progress Texas event page and join us on Wednesday evening, May 20th at Creekwood Grill in Cypress. The event is free thanks to our sponsors Sean Finney, the Honorable Leslie Briones, and Otis Evagaro. And we're getting ready for our 16th anniversary celebration in Dallas with drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save that date. It's Tuesday, June 16th, and see the link in our show notes to reserve your spot. Our good friends Howard Cleon, Charles Zeller, Alex Andrade, the Honorable Dick Levine, the Honorable Bill Peterson, and Mark Yagin are among the supporters of our 16th anniversary shindig, and we appreciate all of you very much. Our live events are a major way that we keep doing what we do, and by sponsoring and attending, you're helping Progress Texas continue our important work during this crucial election year. Learn how to support and to join us live at ProgressTexas.org. Houston listeners, the next episode of our In Progress Roundtable show will come to you on the radio today in the middle of a new Thursday afternoon block of progressive political programming. In Progress starts at 6:30 p.m. every Thursday on KPFT 90.1 FM after the Progressive Forum and before the midterm show with Ernest Wittering, and runs a second time every Sunday morning at 11 on KPFT FM HD2. With your support, we hope to expand our radio footprint beyond Houston this year. Click the link in the show notes to make your tax-deductible donation to help us reach new audiences via Texas Radio. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Thursday, May 7th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day, and we'll catch you again right here tomorrow morning.